play inspired by Richard Feynman titled The Principle of Uncertainty. So that will take place today at 6:15 in room MH3 instead of MH1, and tomorrow Wednesday at 5 p.m. in the same room MH3 instead of MH1. Thank you. Donc je voudrais juste rectifier quelque chose pour la pièce théâtrale titulée Le principe d'incertitude. Elle aura lieu demain à 18h15 dans la salle MH3 au lieu de MH1 et demain à 17h dans la salle MH3 au lieu de MH1. Thank you. We will proceed with the next item on our agenda. The following plenary session will be a conversation with Africa's brightest mind. In order to have that conversation, I would like to call upon the moderator for this session, Dr. Michelle Gregory, who is Vice President of Content and Innovation at Elsevier. Dr. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be introducing the panelists for Discovering Africa's Brightest Innovators. As the Vice President for Content and Innovation at Elsevier, I ensure that Elsevier has access to the state-of-the-art capabilities, and mostly my field is data science, machine learning, and computer science. And I also ensure that these capabilities have an impact on the scientists and medical professionals that we serve. Some of the capabilities we build in-house with our own staff, but often we do this by partnering with universities, startups, and other organizations to find the best talent. What's really remarkable about this panel is that these young innovators share the same stage with heads of state, as we saw this morning, and the pillars of the scientific community. It demonstrates that organizations like AIMS and NEF really understand that it takes an entire ecosystem to support innovation. We heard from the President's panel this morning the importance of education, funding, and partnerships, and all of the programs that each of the countries have put in place. These young innovators are proof that these programs work, and that the programs that are in place and will be in place do work to support innovation. This morning, I had an opportunity to speak with our panelists and heard how their projects have been benefited from and supported by universities, university funding, university incubation labs, grants from various governments, and support from partner organizations like Bosch and Johnson & Johnson. I'd like you all to enjoy the next hour or hour and a half that we have hearing about the innovations and from these young innovators. They're all truly inspiring, and the innovations are really important. They matter. They have an impact in people's lives this very day. It's not futuristic. It's all in place. But I'd also like you guys to take a moment, for everyone here, to take a moment to celebrate the success of the ecosystem that we have all created to make innovation possible. The commitment of AIMS, NEF, the university programs and scientists we've heard from, African governments, and partner organizations is what paved the way for these young, bright innovators. So I'd like you all to give a round of applause for yourselves for supporting this ecosystem before we get started. So how this works is I'm going to call up each of our panelists one by one. I'm going to try really hard not to mispronounce their names. And we'll ask each of them to come to the stage, and after they speak to us for 3 or 4 minutes, then they will sit down. We will hold all questions until all 8 of our panelists have spoken, and then we'll call all 8 up and open questions up to the audience about their particular innovations, about the process they went through, whatever comes to mind. So if you wouldn't mind taking notes for some of the questions you have, so we can do this at the end. So I'm pleased to introduce Temie Giwa-Tubosun. I hope I didn't get that wrong. She has a background in international public management and over 10 years of experience in health management. In 2014, BBC listed her as one of the top 100 most influential women changing the world. She will talk to us about LifeBank, Africa's healthcare supply chain system engine. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm here to tell you about a company that I'm building in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria. Great. So here is an uncomfortable fact. 1 in 22 pregnant women in Africa will die by the time they give birth to their child. It seems like childbirth has become one of the most dangerous things a woman who lives in Africa can do. It's a problem that I find uncomfortable, and it's a problem that I have dedicated my life to solve. About 5 years ago, I found out the biggest reason for this cause that causes maternal mortality on the continent. And not just on the continent in Africa, but it's the biggest cause of maternal mortality in the entire world. But it's not, so there's something called postpartum hemorrhage. Basically, a mom delivers a baby, she starts bleeding. If she doesn't get if she doesn't get access to the blood she needs quickly, she will die. But it's not just moms. Africans who enter any hospital will need blood. It is children, it is people who suffer from sickle cell anemia, it is people, cancer patients. It is such a huge problem on the continent and kills quite a lot of people. So LifeBank is trying to solve that. We are exploring using forward-thinking technology like blockchain for security, like artificial intelligence to predict supply needs, and low-tech technology like USSD to reach rural hospitals and rural patients. We put all these tools together to build a true inventory system for essential medical products, starting with blood. And we also deliver these products. But we don't use high-tech to deliver products. We use something that is very African, motorbikes. I live in Lagos. Lagos has about 22 million people. It's a very small city. Now, each family has about 1 car. So Lagos is always congested. And I think a lot of my fellow Africans in this room can understand that problem. So we need to get these essential medical products to the hospital in the right condition and on time. So we use these motorbikes to deliver these essential products. We've been around for 2 years. We've moved over 9,000 units of blood to needy hospitals all over Lagos State. We've saved 1,400 lives, especially the lives of mothers. So why am I here today? I think that it's absolutely important for the face of innovation, for the growth of African economies to be African. And I believe in this room are the brightest minds, my 7 colleagues who are going to speak after me. We are the brightest minds Africa has, and we are solving essential problems, problems that seem very, very hard to solve. We're solving it with smart technologies that are rooted in science. LifeBank believes science is the heart of innovation, and we are happy to start this conversation. Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite up Grâce-Françoise Nibizi. She's a trained nurse and has a degree in social and economic administration. She has a long history working with international humanitarian organizations. In fact, it's so long that I don't want to list them all here, but you can read them in her profile. Her work is focused on empowering underprivileged women, and she's going to talk to us about her innovation, Ageteka, I hope I pronounced that right, which means dignity.
Hello, everyone. My name is Françoise Nibizi. I come from Burundi. It just crossed Rwanda. I'm the founder and executive director of SaCoDé. SaCoDé means Santé Communauté Développement, but I'm here to talk about Ageteka. As she said, Michelle said, Ageteka means dignity in our language. It's about restoring women and girls' dignity. So you're going to ask me, why did you start Ageteka? So according to a study done by UNICEF in 2016, in Burundi, only 17.1 female students could afford the disposal pads available on the market. Actually, the cheapest pad we have in Burundi costs 2,000 francs, 2,000 Burundian francs, and that is less than $1. And 70%, 70.2% of the female students who were interviewed missed school during their menstrual period. And 88 times 3 part of the study, they really confirmed that numbers. And in the morning, actually, since yesterday, I've been hearing many people, even the President Kagame said about educating women. And if you see these numbers, actually in Burundi, when you go in private, from standard 1 to 5, actually girls are even many than boys. But from standard 6, that's when you see there are no more girls. There are very few. And you just wonder where those girls have gone. So from this problem, I innovated a solution. I innovated Ageteka. Even though the girls don't go to school when they're having their periods, it doesn't mean they just stay like that. Usually they use like kitenge, like what I'm wearing. They will just wrap up and use it, but those kitenge, they leak. So in order to not feel ashamed, they just prefer to stay at home. I'm very sorry about the men who are here. I know this issue is very taboo in Africa, so I'm very sorry. So the girls, we just stay at home, not to be ashamed. And because even the study, we realized that majority of the girls don't have underwear. So they don't have pads, they don't have underwear. I know the ladies will understand. Without a pad, without an underwear, you can't go anywhere, just stay at home. So when they don't go to school, like they will miss their classes like 3 days per month, they will fail tests, and they will fail exams, and sometimes they end up quitting. And you know what happened when they quit? They get married at 16, and they start giving birth, and that continues the cycle of poverty for them and their family. And you wonder why in Africa we have a lot of people who are illiterate. That's the right word. And we know in Africa we say when you educate a woman, you educate the whole village. So Ageteka is washable, it's reusable, and it's sewn in 100% cotton flannel, and in order to avoid irritations and infections. Ageteka sanitary pad is absorbent. Maybe later I'm going to do demonstration. Even if you put water, it doesn't leak. And in order to help those ladies who don't have panties, we have made these with strings. So they can wrap these around their waist, and just go to, even if they don't have underwear, they just wear this, like strings, and then go to school or go to work. So we have distributed Ageteka pads to more than 10,000 girls in schools. And the way we do this, we usually sell these pads. And it's organizations like UNFPA, ERC, I don't know how it is in English, ERC. ERC, UNHCR, they come to buy this for refugees. And half of our profit, we make pads and we give them for free to poor girls so that they can continue their studies. So we have started giving these pads since 2015, and this is the impact. We did a small study on the girls in schools who have given pads just to see whether what we're doing is the right thing for them. And we realized that 80% of our beneficiaries, they don't miss school anymore. This is I was very happy to learn that. And 70% of our beneficiaries are more active in class, so they can participate in class. And 70% of our beneficiaries, they have improved their performance in school. So my conclusion now, I know this is very taboo in Africa, but we don't talk about it, and yet it has a very big impact on girls' education. I know I have been having discussions with Rwandese here, and can you please applaud for Rwandese? Because I was very happy to hear that there is a system in their system. They have put this issue in their education system. A girl who has got traveling because of this. I know, like, in Burundi, we don't have that system. In Kenya, I know they don't do it. In Uganda, although I know during election, they were supposed to give pads to ladies, but I know they haven't got those pads. Am I right, Ugandan people? It's a big issue. So please, this is something which has to be taken very seriously in order to really improve girls' education. Thank you.
So thank you, Françoise. If you guys would like to see that live demonstration, there will be a reception at the J&J Lounge in room AD1 directly following this session. And I'm sure Françoise would be happy to give you a live demonstration. But that really is a hard topic to talk about anywhere, especially in Africa. So let's give her another round of applause, please, for her bravery. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Grace Nakibaala, and she'll correct me if I got that wrong. Grace is a graduate architect and innovation fellow at Makerere University. She served as the Ebola Treatment Unit architect in 2015 and 2016 for Uganda's Ministry of Health. She will talk to us about PedalTap.
Thank you so much. Once again, my name is Nakibaala Grace. I'm an architect, very passionate about our safety in public spaces like this space. In Uganda and most developing countries, you agree with me, the commonest taps that we have are the manual taps, where you have to use your hand to open the tap, wash your hands properly, and you have to use that clean hand to close the tap. Research done by our ministry in Uganda, Ministry of Health, says that 60%, if you go to a public space, like the toilets in such a space or school or church, there's 60% chance you're going to walk away with an infection in your hand, which would either affect you or the next person whose hand you're going to shake. Remember our tradition, we literally shake every person we come across. So how many people are going to get that infection from you? Remember, 60% every time you go to a public water point, you're actually going to walk away with an infection in your hand. If you're one of the people who was in the space in the West Africa during the Ebola outbreak, you would agree with me that so many water points were laid out. But if only you didn't have to open that tap with your hand, you'd have washed your hands more often or better, or you would feel safer practicing the hand hygiene that you were told was going to lead to your safety and not contracting Ebola as you are moving around West Africa. It's for that reason that I, with my team, an engineer and a medical doctor, we have created a foot-operated water dispensing system that we are connecting to the tap system that you already have in your facility. Meaning, when we come to your school, we're not telling you to actually break your tap system. All we are telling you, the same way you use your earphones and plug them PedalTap. And with that, you don't have to worry about touching the tap. Instead, people use their feet to open and close the tap. The PedalTap works like a car accelerator. When you're driving, the more pressure you put on the car accelerator, the faster the car moves. Meaning, you're in control of how much water is going to flow. And at the same time, you won't have that water flow when you don't need it. So often, I myself, if I go to a public water point, I debate 50-50 whether to close the tap or leave it running. And most often, most of us leave the water running. That makes me, the person who's paying the water bill, pay more than what I should have paid. With the PedalTap, me, the owner of the school, the facility, I don't have to worry about extra bills. With PedalTap, we are reducing the cost of water in Africa by 50%. Can you imagine? So PedalTap, we've reduced the fear of infection spread. We've reduced the fear you have to wash your hand, to touch the tap, to wash your hand properly. And with that, we are improving hand hygiene in the communities. We're also reducing water wastage, meaning less water is going to be used, and we are saving money. It's a retrofittable, like I said. We're not telling you to break your water system. We are plugging in the PedalTap. And we can, for that reason, have it everywhere within African or developing countries. And with that, we are able to actually have healthier communities, increased productivity, and at the end of the day, we have improved economies. Most of us must be asking, not everywhere in Africa we have sinks, right? We found out that actually the sinks only cover 30% of Uganda, and that goes to most of the developing countries. But what we use are water drums. We have water drums in all those remote places, including the refugee spaces, where most of us can relate with such a space. We are creating a PedalTap that we are connecting to water drums. So in that space, in that refugee camp, you don't have to worry about cholera or typhoid or diarrhea moving around the space. Instead, people use their feet, wash their hands, saving also the amount of time that you have to fill the drum by half. PedalTap has been endorsed by the Ministry of Health Uganda. Through our pilots, we had taps piloted with our Capital City Authority, with our National Referral Hospital, with the Makerere University School of Public Health and Infectious Disease Institute. These were spaces that we chose to actually pilot, mainly because we know their impact to expand the product to a bigger community within Uganda, and also we know that their endorsement can enable us moving to the other spaces. And my message for you today is, we launched the PedalTap on the 21st of March, officially launched, so it's out on the market. And if you need it, wherever which country you are, we are asking you to purchase a PedalTap for your community or sponsor a PedalTap for a community need. We understand that some of the people, like the refugee communities or public schools, they may not be able to afford a PedalTap, but you and me, we're going to change hand hygiene in these communities by making sure we have a PedalTap everywhere. Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker is Mahmud Johnson. He's the founder and CEO of J-Palm Libera. I'll let him describe his innovation, but his innovation has received many awards, and I'm going to have to read this from a list. He's received awards from the Howard Buffett Foundation, the World Food Prize Foundation, the Tony Blair Governance Initiative, Monrovia's Business Startup Center, USAID, and the Regional University Forum for Capacity Building and Agriculture. He has a degree in economics and a certificate of business strategy from Dartmouth. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's an honor to be here today to talk to you about my company, J-Palm Libera. I'm sure most people know of oil palm, and most of the time when people hear of oil palm, they think of big companies destroying rainforests, they think about environmental pollution. What most people don't know is that there's another form of palm oil that grows naturally in rural areas, and it happens in most West African countries. Grows naturally, nobody's planting these trees, nobody's cutting them down, and so it's environmentally sustainable in that way. The challenge there is that most of the palm oil that's produced this way is produced by smallholder producers in rural areas who really don't have access to technology to be able to efficiently extract the palm oil. A study that was done by USAID showed that about 35% of the oil palm in Liberia go unharvested because smallholders lack access to technology to harvest the palm. When they do harvest, they end up losing about 50% of the expected oil yield because they're using their hands to make the palm oil, and that's just very inefficient. And so what we are doing at J-Palm is we're solving essentially the last mile problem. You have smallholder farmers who have access to the palm trees, they have access to the lands, these trees are owned by the community. You have technology that's being developed to efficiently extract the palm oil, but it's not connecting. And so what we do is we provide access to machines for smallholder producers who travel to the most rural areas, set up these machines so that smallholders can use our machines to process their palm oil. When they process the palm oil, there's also the palm kernels. In most rural areas in Liberia and in most West African countries, the palm kernels are either burned, which creates air pollution, or they are thrown away into the rivers, which also creates river pollution. Not to talk about the fact that these smallholders who are already poor are being forced to leave more money on the table because they're throwing away these very valuable palm kernels. And so what we do, our model is that we process the oils for them, and then we buy the palm kernels from them so that they earn additional income. And so all told, we're able to increase smallholder incomes by anywhere between 70 to 125% based on the extent to which they increase their harvest rates. In addition to that, we also buy the palm oil from them and the palm kernels from them. And what we've done is that we've created a brand called Kernel Fresh, which is a brand of soaps, body oils, facial scrubs, baby oils, essentially health and beauty products from the previously wasted palm kernels. And initially, when we made the Kernel Fresh, we were marketing it as a sort of feel-good, natural skincare product. But what we're seeing is that the oil has some antioxidant properties, and we've actually done the testing through the help of Johnson & Johnson. And people use our products for anything like removing acne, removing rashes. This is recently in Liberia, we had an outbreak of scabies, and this is one of our customers who used it. Within 2 weeks, it was all cleared out. And so right now, we are conducting some research with the National Public Health Institute in Liberia to really understand more about why this product works this way and to see how we can scale it up to make it available to more people who have this infection. In addition to that, we're also creating decent employment for a lot of young people. Last year, 90% of our sales came through sales agents. And within 1 year, we're able to create 300 jobs for young people who otherwise would not have jobs. These are young people who have an average of 5 years of education and would not have jobs in the formal economy. They're making decent incomes, they have medical insurance, and we're providing tuition assistance for them who are in school or for their kids if they're not of school-going age. And so that's, in a nutshell, that is J-Palm. What we're doing is that we're using science, technology, and business to solve several problems for smallholder farmers, creating jobs, and of course, making you look good and feel good about yourself. Thank you so much.
And if you join the Johnson & Johnson reception, he has some samples that you can try as well. Next up, I'd like to welcome to the stage Brian Turyabagye. I'm sure I didn't get that right. He has a degree in telecommunications engineering. He's a member of the QE Prize Global Engineering Ambassadors Network. He's the winner of the Pitch at Palace Africa 2017 and the Saris Award for the Best Sustainability Innovation in Africa in 2017. He will introduce us to MamaOpe.
Oh, thank you so much, moderator. I'm Brian Giwa-Tubosun from Uganda. Yeah, she pronounced it, I think, quite well. and I'm working on a solution called MamaOpe, as I'm going to explain more. So I'll begin this off with a story. 3 years back, my friend Olivia happened to lose her grandmother. Now, she had been taken across 6 different clinics, all of which were treating her of malaria. But until on her deathbed, that's when they got the reports indicating that she had died of pneumonia. It was quite a sad story for us, of course, and she came and narrated it to us. So being part of the same research group, we decided to give it a shot to find out why did the death happen this way. So in our process of researching, we noticed something that is very worrying. That is, 920,000 children die every year due to the disease, due to pneumonia. And let's look at the reasons as to why that happens. First of all, in Africa, the doctor-to-patient ratio is still very low. In my own country, Uganda, the ratio stands at 1 to 24,000 against the standard recommended by the World Health Organization of 1 to 1,000. Very worrying. And on top of that, the vitals of pneumonia are not very easy to track by most of the health workers we have in the rural areas. So it's quite a hard problem for the existing health workers to handle. Plus, even when patients are exposed to the health centers, they cannot get enough attention that they need. So within ourselves, we thought of a solution to combat this. And we came up with a local solution that is in form of a biomedical smart jacket. So how this works is that it is able to track and measure the leading signs of pneumonia. That is to say, a child has to just put it on, and it listens to the different body parts which are of interest with the leading signs. That is the breathing rate, the lung sounds, and as well the temperature. So in capturing these signs, they are passed through a machine learning algorithm that we developed, and it is able to tell us to whether the child is having pneumonia or not within a very short span of time. So because our design is made in a way that it can capture all these signs at once, we're able to offer a fast process of diagnosing the disease compared to the current settings. So currently, we've been able to move this up to a stage whereby we're going through the regulatory approval phase, and we hope that when this solution is out, it will definitely impact many more lives. We have been working closely with the Resilient Africa Network to support this invasion, plus the Royal Academy of Engineering up to where we've been. And yeah, it's great work that has been done. I can assure us that since we entered in Kigali 1 day back, the continent has already lost more than 2,500 children. And it's quite a big number. This is a number which cannot even fit in this room. But our ambition as MamaOpe is to put an end to this. It is to save many more lives which are dying innocently. And we believe we can do this together. MamaOpe is the hope for the mother. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dr. Dougbeh Nyan. He holds a medical degree from Humboldt University in Germany. He's a Liberian doctor, biomedical research scientist, and inventor and social activist. He's an expert in infectious diseases. Dr. Nyan is the winner of the 2017 African Innovation Special Prize for Social Impact and the Lifetime Achievement innovation called the Nyan Test.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not hearing you. Good afternoon, Kigali. Now I hear you. By the time we leave from here, and by the time I'm done giving my presentation, about 10,000 infants, just infants, would have died of various infectious diseases. Globally, about 30,000 people would have died from various infectious diseases. Now, you know, during the Ebola crisis, for example, this is a classic case that infectious diseases do not respect any borders. The infectious disease, Ebola, violated the colonial border left in the Ivory Coast, in Guinea, and the one left in Sierra Leone, and infected the 3 countries, Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. Another situation is such that by the time we leave from here, we will not know exactly how to engage these diseases. But putting our minds together, we will know. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? First and foremost, you will see that there are many infectious diseases that carry similar symptoms. If you look on your right-hand side in the column, These infectious diseases such as malaria, Ebola, and typhoid carry similar symptoms like vomiting, headache, nausea. Now, if you go to the doctor, as a medical practitioner myself, we wouldn't know exactly which disease is affecting which disease is affecting the patient. So that brings into the question wrong diagnosis, wrong treatment, and as a result, antibiotic resistance. Now, you also have co-infection of several diseases like HIV, HBV, and the other hepatitis viruses. In the clinic, we know that if a patient is infected with HIV, later on, they could be possibly infected with hepatitis virus as well. In the tropical countries, they could be infected with tuberculosis. Now, how do you distinguish that this patient is infected with either or one of these diseases, or both or three of these diseases? That's a very big problem. Now, in our setting, we lack high-tech diagnostic tools in the poor and rural settings. Unfortunately, some of the tools brought to us in Africa, we don't need them. They are not useful. And if we use them, they get broken, we can fix them. That's a very big problem. Another issue is the lack of trained diagnostic technicians in these areas. We have also the situation of heavy equipment that cannot be transported in hard-to-reach areas. Then the length of time it takes to diagnose just one disease, tuberculosis, for example. It takes you almost a week or two to diagnose tuberculosis. So this is a problem. There's a delay. What is the solution that we have? We design a system whereby we detect the infectious diseases with one test, and we can distinguish them. We identify them. The test is simple to use, it's high-tech, it's easy to use, it's portable and field deployable, and it takes 10 to 40 minutes to get your diagnosis. So we target 21 good infections, and these are the infections you're looking at here. We are looking at Africa and the poorer countries of the world. It's simple. We take the blood, separate it, and take whatever we want to take from it, put in our reagents, put it on the machine, and we are able to get a reading. So in this sense, what we have done is to create a system that will serve humanity, that will have an impact. Can identify the diseases immediately. It reduces the long waiting time for diagnosis to be made, and it also reduces the hectic nature of transporting heavy equipment from one hard-to-reach area to the other when it cannot even be done. We also empower the healthcare workers to make simple diagnoses which otherwise would have been made by high-tech or highly trained professionals. So I have been called around when I presented in South Africa for collaborations. Now, how do we collaborate? I know recently there was the free trade agreement that was signed recently right in Kigali. I am posing this request to President Paul Kagame and Macky Sall to also improve on forwarding this suggestion so that there can be free movement of people within the African continent. That way, collaborators in the scientific field can easily move around and collaborate with each other. We will be conducting our field studies, and so I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyan. Next up, we have Arthur Zang. Arthur is a computer science engineer and a researcher in biomedical engineering. In 2016, he launched the African Cardiac Care Program, which is a Pan-African healthcare program that enables full cardiac screening for patients from low-income backgrounds. Arthur is going to talk to us about CardioPad.
I am Arthur Zang. I am the CEO of Highmore Medical, which is a medical devices manufacturing company based in Cameroon. Cardiovascular disease kills about 17 million people annually in the world, and 80% of these deaths occur in poor and developing countries. Hypertension and diabetes, which are the main factors of this disease, affect respectively 20% and 9% of the population. In Cameroon, only 21% of the population live in city and the rest live in villages and peri-urban area. 1 woman on 3 is affected by heart disease. 4,000 newborn babies die every year due to congenital heart disease, and less than about 70% of the population live with less than $10 per day. And we estimate that 7% of the population is affected, which represents about 1.5 million people. There is no healthcare insurance, and we estimate that a person who suffers from heart disease spends about $130 per year for heart examination. One of the biggest factors of this disease is the shortage of cardiologists. For example, in Cameroon, we only have 60 cardiologists for 22 million inhabitants, and all of them only work in big hospitals located in cities. So people who live in village have to transport and more expensive and more risky for them. So to solve this problem, I have designed the CardioPad. The CardioPad is a medical device that is used to perform heart examination and remote diagnosis. The device combines the features of a complete 12-lead ECG device and a data transmission modem. So the device, we got a patent of this device in 2011, and we won the Rolex Award for Enterprise in 2014. The device is a part of a kit that we call the CardioPad kit, which contains a tablet, electrode that we can fix on the skin of the patient. We also have a sensor and everything which is required to perform heart examination and remote diagnosis. And we also have a solar panel which comes with the device in order to charge the device even if there is no electricity. So the device works very simply. So to perform an ECG using the CardioPad, we will fix electrode on the skin of the patient. This electrode is connected to a Bluetooth sensor that will transfer the data of the patient to the tablet that will then record, process, and then send the data of the patient to the remote diagnosis who work in city. And then the cardiologist will receive the data of the patient using his smartphone, using an application that we developed, and then he will provide his diagnosis and then send it back to the nurse who carried the patient. So the patient will not have to travel from the village to the city. He will save time and money. And using this process, thank you. So using this process, using this device, I have created my own company, which is called Highmore Medical. I have actually 14 employees, and we work together to provide this device for hospitals in Africa. And based on the use on this device, last year we have launched the Africa Cardiac Care Program, which is a healthcare program that facilitates the access to heart examination for people. So the program allows patients who register to receive ECG, blood pressure, glycemia, and oximetry for $53 per year, unlimitedly. So when a patient registers to the program, he can go in every hospital where the program is hosted, and then he can perform ECG freely all over the year. Actually, we have already 1,600 patients who register for the program, and our objective is to be able to extend our program in 100 hospitals in Cameroon, and then touch 100,000 people per year in Cameroon. So actually, the company, we also work to develop more devices. For example, an ultrasound device that we are still prototyping, and we are also building our first printed circuit board factory in Cameroon, so we will be able to produce the CardioPad totally in Cameroon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our 8th panelist coming up is Cedric Buchana. He's the CEO of AC Group that provides smart transport solutions. He's also on the board of directors of the Private Sector Foundation and the president of the Chamber of Youth Entrepreneurs. He is Stanford and Harvard educated and is here to talk about one of his innovations, Tap and Go. Welcome.
Thank you all, and thanks for having me. And I also congratulate the innovators that have presented and the rest of the innovators in the room and on the continent at large. So AC Group is a holding company that has a number of products within it. And today specifically, I'll talk about the Tap and Go. And I'll share with you two interesting facts. I was having a chat with Osemeke from Nigeria in the morning, and he was telling me about his brother making an investment in public transport. He bought a bus, put the bus on the road, and every day it was excuses. Today we couldn't bring revenue because we had a flat tire. The following day, something else and something else. And because you can't track how many people have been in the bus, you don't know how much money to ask for. Second fact, when you get to Nairobi from Kigali, it's 1 hour and 20 minutes flight to Nairobi. From the airport, Jomo Kenyatta, to Nairobi City is 2 hours if you're lucky because of the traffic. Now, this is not a problem that's only in Nairobi. It's across the continent. Very many cities, you spend 3 hours in traffic in the morning getting to work. You spend 3 other hours getting home. If it rains, it could even go to 5 hours. You can imagine how much productive time is actually wasted in this. So AC Group decided to think about some of these challenges, the revenue leakage and the congestion. And we introduced a very simple system, which is a card-based system. And we install devices on the bus, which I'll keep referring to as validators. And what happens is passengers hold their cards, get on the bus, make a tap to make the payment. We create a network of agents. And in this device that we place in the bus, it has GPS, so you're able to track the speed of the vehicle. You're able to track where your vehicle is. You're able to see how many people you've carried that day. You're able to see how much revenue was actually generated. So in Kigali, we've launched it, making the whole of Kigali City public transport completely cashless, with over 1 million clients with our cards. And just last month, we hit 100 million transactions on the platform. Thank you. And the interesting bit is that we've increased the revenue of the bus companies by 20 to 30%. That means they've are catered by the more number of buses. Our ultimate aim with this product is to make sure that the public transport systems are so efficient and seamless that you prefer to use the bus than your car. Because with the bus, it's swift, and with your car, you'll be stuck in traffic. Parking is also becoming a problem across cities. And with more people moving from individual vehicles to one vehicle, we can curb this challenge of congestion in our cities. And all these hours that we spend in traffic, we can actually use them in our office, getting work done and developing our continent. Our second product is what we call a telematics. The telematics was a branch off from the Tap and Go, which we've used in international conferences. We did it for the World Economic Forum. We did it for the African Union, where delegates use cards, and the shuttles that are moving them from the conference areas to the hotels, we are able to run on our system, and you can tell how many people are still out in the hotel, how many people have arrived at the venue, and with that, you use less of a fleet than you're supposed to, and you increase efficiency by almost 80%. Tap and Go and the telematics has been exported to Cameroon, where we have a 10-year concession to transform the public transport, and we're looking at expanding in other cities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. So just a couple of announcements. We will take questions until 5 o'clock, so I believe that's the next 15 minutes that we can ask questions to any of our panelists. So if you guys can go ahead and make your way up stage so people can get ready to ask you some questions. Also, don't forget the reception directly following in the Johnson & Johnson Lounge, so you can meet our Bright Innovators and see some of the products that they're talking about, and that is in room AD1. Where refreshments will be served. One thing that struck me as I was listening to all of these presentations and learning more about them this morning was that we had a number in the medical field, And those came from both people that are medically trained as well as specialists in machine learning and engineering. It really demonstrates the power of collaborative work and interdisciplinary work and supporting that work. So I think we're all pretty enthused. These are very important innovations, but I'm actually going to start with something a little trickier just to get things moving. Yesterday, we heard on a panel how important innovation is different. You don't expect when you start innovation, you can't go to a regular bank and get a loan. It's very hard to do. It has to be funded in different ways. And that is part of the ecosystem that we have all created. Inherent in that, inherent in all innovation, is the ability to fail. We've all heard fail fast, fail quickly. I was wondering if any of you had stories from your own experience, whether with these products or an earlier one, where you were innovating and it failed to launch, it failed to take off. I think by all metrics that you presented here, these have been quite successful. But do you have any learnings for the rest of the audience of where maybe an innovation has failed?
Let me start. Well, when I started my business in 2013, I had done an entire financial model. We're going to be profitable in a few months. We're going to be making millions of dollars. And so we invested all the money we had in getting machines and hiring a lot of people. Well, turned out that the machines didn't work the way we wanted it to work, and the market didn't receive the products the way we wanted it to do. And so within a few months, I had people standing outside my house, trying to fight me to get paid. My parents had to pay them off. So yeah, it didn't work out, and so I ended up having to use my car as taxi to generate money for that particular period to sort of see me through. But I think one thing that helped was really having a clear vision of where we wanted to go and having a clear sense of what the possibilities were. And I think that's what pulled us forward to be where we are now.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? I think it's on.
Right. Oh, it's on. Right. On an artificial intelligence system to basically predict when a mother might need blood based on her medical history. And we were also excited and thrilled about this. We went to talk to the doctors and hospitals like, oh my God, look at what we built. It's really cool. Will you guys use it? And unfortunately, they didn't have very good reactions because there was a sense of we are building technology that will replace doctors at some point. So I think the lesson we learned from that is carrying sort of the people who would, your audience and your stakeholders along and making them part of your development, your product development system so that you can have, a better chance of, getting the product to market.
Very good advice. Do you have a story as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, this is like a part that most innovators maybe don't get. It's, I'll share with you when we were applying for the Africa Innovation Award by Johnson & Johnson, and we actually thought we were going to the market like the next day. So we had a product and we had done pilots, and we think it's going to the market. But then we learned that we needed to do the legal patenting, we needed to brand ourselves, we need to have strategies, it's like too much work we had to do, work was a whole other year, and the engineer kept telling me, we need to sell. So it's like when you create a product, it's quite a process to sell, to go on the market, and one of the key things that will help you get there, it's the technical part versus the grants and the money. It's actually the people who have the experience in the world of business. So as innovators, we always think impact, and we forget the business aspect, but the journey from you've got the impact is there and the product seems to be ready, there's quite a long journey to going on the market.
Very good. So I have just one more quick question, then we'll open it up to the audience. And that last comment was a good segue. So we started this session talking about the ecosystem of innovation and how events like the Next Einstein Forum really bring together all parts of that ecosystem. So do a couple of you have stories you want to share of where you received funding, how your project started, where you got your innovative seed funding, or how it progressed through partnerships or government grants? Someone who hasn't spoken yet?
Yes. When I started off, it was a little difficult convincing my principal investigators at the time that it was possible to detect 3 to 7 infectious diseases at the same time and identify them. I had to cross that boundary, and it always happens in science. You are doubted, and you have to prove yourself. We published it in Nature, just for your information. Then we got this grant from the federal government, from the US government. And then I had to then do these 3 clinical pilot studies at the Federal Drug Administration, Food and Drug Administration in the United States. So there we did 3 clinical studies. So in terms of funding, there we got funding from. But from that point on, it's been difficult getting funding. That requires now going to angel investors or VCs or philanthropic organizations. At the stage where we are now, we need to go for a few trials because we will build a first generation prototype. It works very well. We want to build a second generation, take that for a few trials, and then go for commercialization. Getting funding has now become the problem because I am not a business person. I don't have a business degree. So I have to learn all of that gradually as I go along, you know, all the business terminology and those things. So those are where the situations are in terms of getting funding.
You could talk to Patrick. He's got a couple business degrees. Okay. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, probably. Hello? Yeah, I'll give it a try. When we were starting off, I think our first hope was the government. We thought we were going to get funds from the government, but it didn't come easy. For the first time we went to pitch them, they wanted a product which was ready, yet we had an idea. So everyone was applauding us there. You have a great idea. You have something that will work in the market. But then reaching the other side, they want something that has gone through from the process from A to Z, yet we didn't have any of that. And so definitely we first sat back and had to look through ourselves, what can we do, where can we generate the money from? And luckily enough, we had applied for a competition called the Big Ideas Competition, run by the University of Berkeley, where we got our first round of funding. Yeah, and yeah, it was good enough to at least push us through all that process of actualizing our idea and making it into a product. And of course, later on, we saw the responses, let's say from the Ugandan ecosystem, weren't that big in terms of supporting with the funds. But then as time of course, we had to go and get some business knowledge in terms of how to raise more funds, how do we get moving on with the pitches, talk to different people who can fund your thing. And as up to now, well, I can say we have probably had a good amount of money at least to run us to this stage where we are.
Okay, thank you all. So let's, if anyone has a question for Arthur, he has to run. So if we could ask him a question first, and then we'll let you go, and then we'll move on to the other panelists. Yes. Yeah, you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for your for the product and the innovation that you have presented to us. Actually, my question goes to not just MamaOpe, but to basically everyone. Your innovation is centered around collecting a lot of data. You know, there is a lot of data that you're generating with what you have done for the transport, for the cardio, and everything. Do you have, systems where the consent of those who use it? Do you have systems where you transmit data? And because from what you do, you can build a huge database of data that can be used to advise governments, can be used to, for decision-making processes, either in the areas of transport, in the areas of health. Do you have these kinds of systems incorporated in them? Thank you.
Okay, so for our system, for the CardioPad system, it is a medical data for patients, so it is very confidential. For the moment, we don't use the data from the patient, maybe to provide them to other organizations. We have a system, of course, because we get many data from our different CardioPad, so we have a remote server with a database inside, which will collect the data coming from the CardioPad and also the data coming from the diagnosis of specialists. And then we also have an intelligence system which will provide the priorities. That means examination which are very critical, to diagnose. So this is the process that we implement in our server. But we don't share for the moment, we don't share the data of our patient with any other organization. Yeah.
So, sure.
Yeah, at SaCoDé, we have what we call an SMS mass messaging. It's a platform. Actually, what I didn't mention during my presentation is that our main objective is not only like in schools where we're going to distribute for free. It's not only for distributing. Our main objective is to teach girls how to handle their menstruation hygienically. And after distributing the pads, we will collect phone numbers, but we know the girls, they don't have phones, but we collect numbers from their teachers, from our community health workers, and they will help us track the absenteeism or anything related to the girls so that we can really be sure that our pad has got an impact. Otherwise, all the girls we distribute, we give pads, we register them in our system.
Yes. So for us, actually, the future of our system and the development of intelligent transport systems entirely depends on the data that we collect. And it's key, actually. Our data scientist is also in the room. And we have multiple stakeholders, the government being one of them, the regulator in particular, and we give them data that helps them make decisions. Some of the markets which we operate in, the prices of public transport are regulated by government. And for very long, these prices were set out of simple surveys, but now they have factual data that helps them to set the price. Maybe just to share another initiative that is coming up in one of our markets is a designated bus lane, where at peak hour, there's a lane just for the bus. But of all the routes in the city, being able to choose which routes, that entirely depends on the data. And the more accurate the data is, the simpler it is to make certain decisions and a bit more.
Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Hello, my name is Aretha Mare. I'm from the University of Sussex Science Policy Research Unit. I would like to pose a question to the innovators. How have they navigated the regulatory process for their innovations? Would they consider the process a hindrance, or if they have any suggestions for governments to improve the process?
Good question.
Well, for us, we have got an endorsement from ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African States, which is like SADC in your region here. And the Liberian government has also endorsed us. So with ECOWAS having an economic community, there seems to be an ease, but there are hurdles because of some differences in the approaches. Even with the question of filing the patents and other things in the African region, we've already filed patents in the US. So these are all the regulatory nuances that we have to approach. So all of Africa does not have one regulatory body, so that makes it also difficult. So in every region we go to, we have to approach that regulatory region and see how we can have our products in that market. Even for field studies, same thing. For clinical studies, same thing.
I'll just say that for us, my team, so we realized that the government of Uganda is slow at endorsing, like it's really slow or impossible. So what we decided to do is we engaged them from the point of pilots. So start of the test of the product. So they were like part of the whole journey, and that is the point of endorsement, because then we are telling you our product, you, us and you, the government, is ready for the market. The other thing is we looked at the private endorsement. So if you get a private endorsement, there are higher chances in my country to get a government endorsement, because then they really want to be part of it. That's one way we do it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, for us in the technology space, it's become very complicated. But some of the brave steps that have been taken, like in Kenya, where the central bank regulated M-Pesa, even without understanding, I think are some of the risks, calculated risks that governments should take. Another suggestion would be a regulatory sandbox where they allow you to operate within a certain framework in what you can call first phase or pilot, in which they monitor how the product works and try to understand it. Otherwise, we're going to have to lose out on certain innovations because of challenges of policy and regulation.
And for us, we have a convention with the Ministry of Health because otherwise we could not start distributing these pads to schoolgirls without involving the Ministry of Health. And since I got the award, the African Innovation Award, actually because the word went all over the place. Thank you, Johnson & Johnson. So that's when UNICEF came to know me, and they have come to ask me to write norms of menstrual hygiene management, and which is going to be included in school curricula.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So that's a very good example of the ecosystem. So we are going till 5. How much time do we have left? We have time for a couple more questions. Yes.
I was very excited. I was very excited to hear from Arthur that he's manufacturing in Cameroon. Too often I've heard of people doing exciting things in Africa, especially in IT, but they're doing the manufacturing in Southeast Asia and in Cameroon, or has it been easy to do it there?
Okay, this is a good question. It was very, very, very difficult in Cameroon to build this company. The first difficulty was about the knowledge, because basically I'm a computer science engineer, and I've been making many research in the biomedical engineering for a year, and also I have been working with many cardiologists, so it was not easy to get the knowledge about the digital signal processing for ECG, but it takes me some time. And the second difficulty, of course, is you find the money to build your company, to provide, to finish your prototype. And for me, when I was a researcher in the High School of Polytechnic, when I finished my prototype, I recorded a small video that I posted on the internet, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So this is why I found my first funding that helped me to build my company. And at the beginning, it was very difficult, because if you want to manufacture in Africa, you have to understand the technology. So what is the step to manufacture a printed circuit board? What kind of machine do you need? And it is very expensive, this kind of machine. So we were not able to raise enough money to build our own factory at the beginning. So our strategy was to build our factory based on our revenue. So we built the first stock of CardioPad, of 100 CardioPad in China with a partner here. So we build the printed circuit board, and then we import the electronic component in Cameroon, and then we do the assembly, the development of the software, and the deployment in Cameroon. So actually we have an assembly unit with 3 electrical engineers. We do the assembly, and then we also do the same with our second stock. That means we manufacture maybe 60% in China and 40% in Cameroon. So with the money that we got from the selling of our second stock, we decided to buy the device, to order the device, and to import this machine in Cameroon. So the next stock of the device will be totally produced in Cameroon, but it takes time. It takes time because at the beginning, raising money, it is the main difficulty in Africa. So you have to take time, maybe to generate revenue first, to make the company be profitable, and then use your own money to build your company, so your factory. So this is why we have done to to progress until now?
Thank you. We have time for just one more question, Osameke, and then we have to call it a day.
Okay, time is fast spent, so I'm going to make it quick. My name is Osameke. I'm a physician and data scientist working within the Content and Innovation Group at Elsevier. So I have two questions, really, or two sets of questions. One for Brian. So there's a lot of focus on machine learning, but the quality of the algorithm is heavily dependent on the quality of the data that is used in training the algorithm. Now, to date, like data from how many children have you used in training the machine learning algorithm you've developed? So that's the first question.
And we're only going to have time for that one question, so go ahead and answer.
Okay, thank you for the question. As up to date, we've been using samples from voluntary patients. That is up to like 50 samples that we've used to train the algorithm. What we're getting into is a controlled process of collecting this data. That is, we have steps lined up to get to these health centers with experts around us. That is, we'll get the data, then have it verified first by the experts that will go with. That is the senior pediatrics that we do have. So with that data having been verified by these experts, we believe we'll be having enough facts to go by to pass the data through our algorithms and come up with a final model that we can use on the final product that we shall be using. So that's like the control process that we have designed around our process to ensure that we have expert data that is very well verified and that is able to make meaning in the market.
Okay, so we're going to have to call it a close. Don't forget you can meet our Bright Innovators in the Johnson & Johnson room at AD1 directly following this session. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michelle. Well done. Thank you all. May I kindly have your attention? We will go straight into our last sessions for today. I will need your attention because we will have 4 concurrent and parallel sessions running at the same time. If you could kindly listen to these announcements. The first parallel session will take place here. It is a session on learning to lead. And the title is, What Capacities Do Scientists of Tomorrow Need? So that session will take place in this very session, in this very room. The second parallel session will take place in AD10 room, NESA, and that session is about the new fintech frontier.